6, Women's Cal Cup, Heat C. Sacramento State was first, followed by State University of New York at Buffalo. About a second separating those two crews, followed by Loyola third, Santa Clara fourth, UC Irvine, Colorado, and Texas. Here is Heat A of the Copley Cup, event number 7, in a time of 5:41.6, a pretty quick pace this early in the season. University of Washington was first. Second was Harvard, followed by Stanford. Those three crews will be advancing to the
Lane
final.
4 in
Syracuse
4
was
inches.
fourth. Oregon State, UC San Diego, and Colgate.
Lane 2 out 1 inch.
As you may be able to hear, we're already listening to the official starter or line our boats. The wind speed is kicked up just a bit, and it's a little bit more of a challenge for event number 9 coming up on the card. And this is the Jessop-Whittier Cup. It'll be the first of 2 with University of Southern California in lane number 1. They are currently the highest ranked crew nationally at number 4. Then Washington is in lane number 2. And Washington State in lane 3. Currently Washington State in lane 3 has a little bit higher rating at 15, followed by Washington at 17. And also sneaking in there in lane number 4 is Clemson at 16. So we have 15, 16, and 17, as well as the number 4 nationally ranked crew, with Purdue probably the most experienced in this group out in lane 5, at least for this season. They have currently had 6 races and are 3-3.
The Jessop-Whittier Cup is the premier event for the women's collegiate rowing. These are all varsity crews from across the country. We have 2 heats today, and there'll be 3 qualifying from each of these heats.
And we're off for our 5 crews in the Jessop-Whittier Cup Heat A.
As one would expect from the number 4 ranked crew in the nation, University of Southern California are powered off the line in lane 1. And on the outside, Purdue, although they've raced a lot this season, they've already started to lose ground on Clemson, Washington State, and Washington. But as we come down into the middle part of the first 500, in fact, it's the University of Washington under their new head coach, Bob Ernst, who have powered out in front of Southern California, Washington State, and Clemson. Washington have taken at least 2 to 3 seats on the rest of the field in the first 250 meters. University of Southern California are not panicking. They're hanging on. In fact, they're starting to inch back on Washington after Washington's very powerful start. Washington State are losing a little bit of ground. They're probably half a length down on Washington at the moment, with Clemson, who are undefeated so far this season. They are hanging on in there. They have not lost very much ground on Washington. And as the University of Southern California are starting to inch back on Washington, they're closely followed by Clemson, who are really hanging on tight to these 2 crews in lanes 1 and 2. With Washington State just in touch but losing a little bit of ground. In fact, Washington State has put on a bit of a surge. They put on a bit of a surge, and as they come through the 500-meter mark, it's Washington very closely followed by Southern California, with Washington State just edging Clemson at this point, with Purdue open water behind.
Setting our lane assignments once again quickly. University of Southern California is in lane number 1. Washington coming out of lane 2. That's Washington State in lane 3. Clemson in lane 4. And Purdue in lane 5. University of Southern California reportedly got off to a great start, and then Washington snuck up in there now, and they are in second position, followed by Washington State in 3, Clemson in 4, and Purdue in 5. This is the first heat of the Jessop-Whittier Cup, an outstanding event for our women rowers at the San Diego Crew Classic 2008 edition. In the early going, Washington on the lead, University of Southern California 2, Washington State 3, Clemson 4, and Purdue number 5.
Good shot there for Clemson Tigers. There's Washington State. USC Trojan women.
In the early going, a very competitive race along the shoreline. University of Southern California had a little bit of a struggle at the beginning, but apparently they've now moved into a bit of a lead over Washington and Washington State in the center of the field, outside to Clemson and Purdue trailing. It is certainly a credit to this USC crew to get off to a struggling start and be able to come back into the situation. USC along the shoreline, currently in number 1. It is Washington and Washington State 2-3. The top 3 crews will move on. Clemson is certainly not going away out there in lane number 4, and open water back to Purdue.
Our leader, USC there, going out of the picture.
Washington State putting on a bit of a move out there in lane number 3. Looks like they have overtaken Washington, but USC still out on the lead, although they are being challenged out of lane 3 by Washington State. All the way to the outside, Clemson will have a little bit of a struggle to catch up into the top 3 position here, and on the outside it is Purdue.
Shot there of the Husky women, followed by around the outside there Washington State. Coming into view, our leader, USC.
Putting up with a little bit more chop on our surface than we have had in earlier races here. Currently not affecting USC along the shoreline, continuing to lead this one. Washington State in the center in lane number 3, but look out, Clemson is on the outside there, beginning to challenge with Washington in lane number 2, and on the far outside it is Purdue. We may have a boat race for that third and final qualifying position as USC and Washington State are in the hunt, but it looks like a challenge here between Clemson and Washington. Washington in lane 2, Clemson rolling out of lane number 4. In the center of the field, Washington State putting on a bit of a challenge to USC. On the far outside, that's Clemson challenging Washington. Shoreline, USC, Washington State in the center of the field, and they are almost even. Then we have about 6 seats back to Washington and Clemson. Washington on the shoreline side. Once again, it is slightly Washington, maybe 3 seats ahead, with Clemson on the outside. USC, Washington State, Washington, and Clemson, Purdue trailing. Well, we're going to need to wait for the official result, but it appeared that Washington may have snuck in there for that third position, eclipsing Clemson and Purdue.
That was Heat A of the Jessop-Whittier Cup. USC unofficially, followed by Washington State and University of Washington. I'm sure Washington State very happy to have won over their cross-state rivals over in Seattle. Here are the official results from event number 8. This is the Copley Cup Heat B. University of California Golden Bears. Our winner, a time of 5:45.4. That compares with the winning time by Washington in the Heat A of 5:41.6.